hello there, and what are you in for today? Well, today I would like to share with you the story of how I accidentally manifested the expectation gaps. And this is going to be a story of staying curious, of absorbing wisdom, and ultimately it's really about having faith in yourself and believing in yourself and then doing something with it and actually taking action. And I want to share this story with you because I know that what has positively impacted my life, maybe more than anything, is hearing authentic stories from other people of their struggles, their hardships, their perseverance, and ultimately their success. So I'm hoping to share my story with you. I'm hoping that it will, by doing so, it will positively impact your life. And also, I'm doing it to offer some real life examples so that maybe these examples will help you identify some of your own opportunities that are right in front of your face, hiding in plain sight that maybe you just can't see right now. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Now, if you're familiar with me at all, you know that my whole mission and everything that I write about revolves around deliberate thinking, the philosophy of deliberate thinking. And specifically, I believe in deliberately thinking about expectations or limiting beliefs, whatever you want to call it. And oddly enough, the first time that I ever started thinking about expectations was actually at an accounting seminar. I was a CPA for 20 years, as you may know. So, anyways, this was well over 15 years ago. This particular seminar focused on management, and there was a lot of talk about managing expectations. So, managing the expectations of your clients, managing the expectations of your supervisors, coworkers, your direct reports, all those types of things. All of which are great in a business environment. But it got me to thinking about the expectations I was placing on myself. And I knew that I needed to start managing those too because I placed way too many expectations on myself. And if you're an overachiever like I am, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So we'll fast forward, that was like 15 years ago. Now we're going to fast forward to about 2 years ago. And I discovered Gary John Bishop's book called Unf Yourself. I'm not going to say the whole word because I don't feel the need to use that word if I don't need to. But anyways, it's called Unf Yourself, Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. And in it, one quote of his that just stuck with me, and I think about it pretty much every day, is I expect nothing and accept everything. And this was like an epiphany to me because I already had been thinking about my own expectations and managing expectations of others. So this just hit me. And I'd like to read a direct quote from the book too here to bring it home. So another thing he says is, Gary John Bishop, is when you expect nothing, you're living in the moment. You're not worrying about the future or rejecting the past. When you accept everything, that doesn't mean that you agree with it, but simply that you are owning it and in charge of it. So now today, now that I know a little bit more about manifestation, I kind of can see that what he's actually talking about is manifestation. And so that's why I think I accidentally manifested this whole thing because all these thoughts were already in my head before I ever knew what manifestation was. So I'd like to ask you a couple questions now to kind of keep you thinking as we go through this. Can you recall an epiphany or aha moment in your life, and what do you think that realization was trying to tell you? What is it supposed to be leading you toward? So start thinking about that. All right, so the next thing that happened, after I read Unf Yourself, I discovered TED Talks, which is kind of dangerous to someone who is addicted to learning like I am. But I love TED Talks. And besides TED Talks, I found many other inspiring independent content creators, and I started gaining so much wisdom. And one of the first speakers that I became a bit obsessed with was Glennon Doyle. And in one of her speeches, she's talking about what she calls shiny women, or women that seem to have it all together, and women that she admired. And she mentions that all the shiny women that she knows take the time to sit quietly with themselves. And so I got to thinking about that. And then there was a really powerful quote in that speech, and she says, let me read this here a minute. The wisest women that I know only take orders from the voice that they hear in the quiet. And so what did I do? So of course I started trying it out. What did I have to lose? So I started sitting quietly with myself with some white noise in the background, of course, because yeah, I can't sit in absolute quiet. But anyways, so I started sitting quietly with myself for 5 to 10 minutes every day, and this was an amazing experience. And all these emotions and thoughts and things that I didn't even know were inside me started coming to the surface. And so then I did start hearing a voice, and I started listening to it. And now that I know more about manifestation, now I would call that my inner guide. And my inner guide was reinterpreting my situation for me. I realize now that that's what was really happening. So, back to you. Have you tried to sit quietly with yourself? And if you did, what did you discover? And if you haven't, why not give it a try? You don't have anything to lose, and it might just be one of the most powerful experiences you'll ever have. So, there's my challenge for the day. Alright, so what was my inner guide trying to tell me? So, to understand this or to get into that, we need to have a little context first. So, we're going to back up a bit. So, after I discovered Gary John Bishop, the next person who really impacted my life that I discovered was Mel Robbins. And I discovered a TED talk of hers from like 2011. And in it, she's encouraging her audience to think about what they want because she believes they can get what they want if they really want to. There's a lot of wants in one sentence. But anyway, so, and then she goes on to start rattling off some examples. Maybe you want X, maybe you want Y. And then she only listed 4 examples. The third example was maybe you want to start a nonprofit organization. And that just hit me because that is something that I have always wanted to do, or at least for a very long time I wanted to do that. But I just could never really picture how that would happen. And but I still just had this deep-seated belief that that's just what I was supposed to do somehow, someday. So anyway, it just hit me that she only gave 4 examples, and that was one of them. So I took that as a sign. And so then the next person I came across was Glennon Doyle, who I already talked about, but she actually led me to Brene Brown. So I started listening to a lot of her talks. And Brene speaks a lot about vulnerability, authenticity, and core values. And she says vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And another quote of hers that really hit me is, I'm going to read this one. People who wade into discomfort and vulnerability and tell the truth about their stories are the real badasses. And I'm just like, wow, that's a really powerful statement. And that made a lot of sense to me. And those 2 quotes, and her whole talk really, but made me realize 3 things about myself. First, I've always wanted to help people, but I want to do it in a way that is innovative and creative. And I also realized that the people who have helped me the most in my times of need have been the people who shared their truth with me, shared the truth about their stories with me. So I want to be able to do that for other people. And I'm pretty good at being vulnerable. I think that's why I can connect with people fairly easily, but I want to be really good at it so that I can use it to help people. I can use it to be innovative and creative and share my truth. So I realized those things. And then the next consequential, I don't know if that came out right, consequential action that I did was a simple brain dump. So there was one day I was just feeling really overwhelmed. My head was just full for whatever reason, racing thoughts, and I'm like, I have just got to get this out of my head. So this has been going on for a while. And one day I finally like, okay, I'm just sitting down. I'm just dumping everything out. And I just started writing random thoughts, random, not even sentences, whatever, just writing until I had nothing else left. Okay, so then this is where we're going to get into the manifesting part. Alright, so a couple days after that is when I started to sit quietly with myself. And I did this for a few days in a row, and then a message did come to me. And it went as a little something like this. It said, you have acquired so much knowledge. You have experienced a lot of struggles in your life and gotten through them successfully. You have a natural ability to connect with people, and not everyone has these gifts, and you need to realize that not everyone has these gifts, and you can use them to help people, and you can help people become the best people that they can be. Okay, yeah, that makes some sense to me. But how the heck am I supposed to do that? Come on, boys, tell me more. So, a day or so later, I'm doing the same thing again, sitting quietly with myself, and another message comes to me, and it's telling me, you have a natural need to learn. You have a natural need to analyze and process information. The problem is you're not doing anything with that information. It's just sitting in your head, and it's driving you crazy. So you need to do something about it. You need to start writing. Great. Okay, again, that sounds all fine and good, but how the heck am I supposed to do that? So then, I don't know, sometime soon after that, I came across this YouTuber. She goes by the name Wenzes, I think, Wenzes. And she was talking about the internet and how it's so powerful, and if you're not utilizing it, you're going to be left behind because people are going to be living on the internet soon if they aren't already. So somehow that stuck in my head, and then the next time that I sat with myself quietly, I got the message that I was supposed to start a blog. And I'm like, seriously? Come on, inner guide. What the heck are you telling me here? I know nothing about that. I'm not a social media person. I don't know anything about social media, hardly. I know a little about Facebook. That's about it. And I know nothing about that world. But yet, somehow it felt right. And I didn't really know why it felt right, but it did. So I started learning more about blogging. One step naturally led to the next. It just felt like this natural progression. It didn't feel like a struggle. It didn't feel like something I was forcing. And it just really felt, it sounds so cheesy to say this, but it seriously felt like I was just following a path that had already been laid out for me. And not only that, but I felt like I had to follow it. I didn't feel like I had much of a choice because I thought I'm going to lose my sanity if I don't follow this path. Now, back to you. Have you had a similar experience when you just knew that there was something that you were supposed to do even though you didn't really understand why? And more importantly, did you listen to yourself? Did you pursue that? Or did you talk yourself out of it? So, back to me now. This is, it's about both of us, but we're going to be coming back to me. So, once I was aware of the path that I was supposed to be on, I started following it. And I want to quote Dandapani, who is a Hindu priest I talked about in my last post. He says, where awareness goes, energy flows. And that just makes so much sense to me now because once I was aware of that path, my energy started flowing. And boy, was I ever energized. And all these ideas were coming to my head. Like every night, I'd go to bed, I'd wake up with 4 or 5 new thoughts in the morning. I mean, it was just crazy. And thoughts were just flooding my head all day, but they weren't overwhelming thoughts at that point. They got to be overwhelming. But it was just really energizing. And so I started tackling one thing at a time and figuring out if I could do this or how I would do this. And within 2 months, which is not really very long time in the scheme of things, I had made the decision to leave my career of 20 plus years. But I don't really even know if calling it a decision is fair because it really felt more like a calling, which again is a really cheesy thing to say, but that's what it felt like. I felt like I didn't really have a choice, or I did have a choice, but the alternative was that I would end up miserable and that I would end up bringing everyone close to me along with me. And I'd been down that road before. I wasn't going down that road again. So now I'm about 6 months into this thing, doing this full time, and I'm still continuing to manifest this organization every day. It kind of still has a life of its own. I'm just following it, and actually, the days that I don't try to control it are the days that I have the most insight, the most thought, or the most new ideas, and the most fun. So I try to do that. I'm not good at it every day. There are days that I let myself get overwhelmed. But one example is that I never know what I'm going to write about. I never know what my next series is going to be until the day I start writing it, usually. Sometimes I have maybe an inkling of what it might be, but the big thing is I don't worry about it. The night before I'm going to start a new series, and I go to bed and I don't have any idea what I'm going to be writing about the next day, I seriously am not worried about it because I've learned to trust myself to figure it out. I know that it will come to me when it needs to, and so far it has. So I'm learning to trust myself, And I want to leave you, well, I'm not completely done yet, but this is the last quote that I'm going to leave you with. It's a pretty powerful one from Charlie Wardell. And it says, you may have heard it, it's kind of popular, but a bird sitting on a tree is never afraid of the branch breaking because its trust is not on the branch but on its own wings. And man, that is just how I really feel right now, because I don't feel like there's no way this is going to fail, because I know there's a good chance. I don't know, good is the right way to say it. That's not very positive, but there's a good chance that this is going to fail. But I'm not worried about it, because I know whatever is going to happen, I will figure it out, and I will be able to take care of myself. So, back to you. Is there something that gives you energy? Something that your awareness goes to naturally? What is it? And could it be the key to manifesting what you want? Because you know what you want to try to manifest yet or not. And maybe wherever your energy is going, if you start focusing on that, maybe it will help guide you toward what you really want. Okay, so I have created a couple resources for you. Well, I didn't create a separate worksheet for this post, but there is a worksheet about manifestation that goes along with the post. Can you really manifest what you want? So that will still help you out with manifesting. So check that worksheet out. And I did put together a 20-question journal, which is on the dollar menu. A 20-question journal about learning about manifestation that will guide you through learning about manifestation. So until next time, stay curious.